and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. This is your daily audio stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular audio podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, NORMLAudiostash.com. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. Welcome back to the Audio Stash. Today it's Thursday, July the 12th. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Take a moment to join us at NORML right now to end marijuana prohibition in America. Don't just talk about legalization. Do something to make it happen. Join NORML today. It's real easy. Just visit norml.org to get involved. We've got an excellent show for you today with author Joe Zakos. On his new book, We Make Change, community organizers talk about what they do and why. It's important to realize, folks, that NORML is one of the largest grassroots organizations this country has ever seen. Over 140 local chapters of NORML operate in almost every single state. Many states like California and Florida have a multiplicity of chapters to serve their population. Now, each of these local NORML chapters is run by its own set of people, its own board of directors, its own organizers, its own members. They have their own activities. We highlight a lot of this right here on the Audio Stash, and we have a lot of the directors of NORML chapters on as well. So today, our author, Joe Zakos, in his book, We Make Change, focuses on what community organizing is all about, what it means to actually do this job. It's true that you can actually make somewhat of a career out of activism. You can make a career out of community organizing. I wouldn't say that if you like a 9-to-5 job, you would want to make organizing your career, but if you've got the drive and if you've got the will, community organizing could be for you. In the book, We Make Change, Joe went out and profiled a number of community organizers and really learned from them what was successful and what wasn't. It's a pretty surprising book in a lot of ways, and you'll hear some of the success stories and some of the things to really avoid as a grassroots activist. Now, everyone listening to my voice right now in this podcast has the chance to join a local NORML chapter. And hey, if there's not one right in your area, think about starting a local NORML chapter. It's easy. That's what National NORML is here for as well. Erin Dame, the outreach coordinator at National NORML, can help you through the chapter startup process. And we've spoken to a number of folks who've started up their own local NORML chapters either on a campus or in their own local community, and it really is an easy process. Again, the book is We Make Change. Community organizers talk about what they do and why, and this is something of particular importance to one of the largest grassroots organizations in the country, NORML. We've got links so that you can link up to all of the NORML chapters on our website today at normlaudiostash.com. Here's author Joe Zakos.
Thanks, Chris. It's good to be with you.
Great to speak with you, Joe. Now, a lot of organizing is somewhat under the public radar. It doesn't get too much media attention. But tell us, what role does this type of activity play in the fabric of our country?
Well, I think community organizing has always been there. It's just we don't identify it by those words. I think that we hear about it through more the women's movement or the civil rights movement or the environmental movement or the nuclear freeze movement. We tend to hear about things in a bigger way without realizing that day to day in every community across the country, organizing is going on in a very systematic way. I think that Ellen Ryan described it best when I interviewed her. She said an organizer brings people together to sort out specific changes they want to see in the life of the community, develop strategies to get there, and then moves people into action to make the changes happen. And again, we see it all the time. A local group wants better schools, or they want to protect the environment in their area, or they're pushing for living wages. And it's just the fabric of our democracy.
When you set out to write this book, how did you choose the organizers and the organizations you focused on?
Well, anytime I went to a regional or state or national meeting, I just took my little tape recorder with me, and I would ask people if I could talk to them. And I had a series of questions. Just tell me about your life. Tell me why you're an organizer. Tell me what you think makes an effective organizer. What advice would you give to a young person who's thinking about doing this? And part of it was to try to bring to life that this is life's work for people, and it's their career, and they make a living at it. They have families, they have kids, and you can do that. And as I went along, I was trying to find a really diverse group of people who were doing organizing, and so I ended up with some people focusing more on a neighborhood level, some on a city level, some statewide, rural, urban, different parts of the country. So we ended up with 81 interviews, people from 28 different states. And at the end, we concluded that the definition of community organizing sure is elastic, because people just had really varied approaches of how they did that.
And Joe, is it a modern thing that, community organizing and activism have become somewhat of a career opportunity for young people, that these grassroots efforts are ongoing concerns where young adults can look at this type of activity as a real career option?
Well, I think if we look back maybe in the 30s and 40s, there were labor organizers, and that was a career, but we really separated it out. Most times we considered the work in a community more like a Jane Addams, a settlement house, and it was seen more as kind of a social work piece. I think now you're right, there is a clearer role that says this person is working for long-term social change. But I think one of the tricks is that most organizers are pretty invisible. If you're working with a community group and you're helping leaders develop their skills, they're the ones who are going out to speak for the organization, not the organizer or the members of that group. So if you were to call me as an organizer and say, I need somebody to show up at a media conference to talk about minimum wage, I'm going to try to find a minimum wage worker to speak. Those are the voices that an organizer is trying to raise. So I think in a lot of ways, the organizer is invisible, and so people just don't know about them.
Now let's talk about this job of organizing and some of the folks profiled in We Make Change. What's a typical workday like for an organizer?
Well, I think that a lot of organizers do, there's varying degrees of this, but a lot of them do a tremendous number of meetings. And those meetings are either going to be just one-to-one with one person talking to them, or they're going to be community meetings where you're trying to gather people together. And depends on where you are. That might mean either a lot of personal contact, like if you're a neighborhood organizer in a city, you can go knock on doors and meet people pretty quickly, but you're trying to get them to other meetings, a planning meeting, to the bigger meeting, or house meetings, to the bigger community meeting. And then the other style is if you're more distant, let's say you're working on a multi-county or a statewide level, just a tremendous number of phone calls. I remember once going to the Lexington, Kentucky Children's Museum, and when you went in the door, there was a thing on the wall that said, remember, children like to repeat things over and over and over. And it went through 3 floors of the Children's Museum, and it just kept saying over and over and over. And when I went there, I thought, hey, that's a lot like community organizing. You say things over and over and over and over, explaining to people and just helping them learn how they can participate in their community.
And yet a job or career in organizing and grassroots activism, this is not a 9-to-5 gig. You're having meetings in the evening, even getting calls at 2 in the morning, I'm sure.
I think Leanne Hall, who's in Washington, the state of Washington, describes this just exactly what you're pointing to. Organizing makes my heart beat fast. It's been a challenge every day, and I like that. I've never, ever had a moment of being bored or disengaged. I like the people. I like the members. It gets messy, and there are times that are hard, and there are times that people are just yelling at you. But it's about being part of a team of people that don't have a lot. Working with them has usually been an honor. It's the sharing, the commitment, and the sacrifice by people who have had so much less than I've ever had. They're willing to make that sacrifice to improve things. The courage that people have and the dedication, that's who I want to hang out with. That's my community. And you're right, it happens. It's sometimes can be a 24/7, and I think one of the things that we asked the folks we interviewed is how do you bring balance to your life? How do you make sure that you just don't get worn out? And Jerome Scott is a director of Project South in Atlanta, I think, was right on target. He said, well, you can't be a sprinter in this work. There's no sprinting. You have to look at it like it's a marathon. That's how we bring some balance to life.
Also, Joe, in the book, We Make Change, and in other interviews I've done on the topic of community organizing in general, in fact, my own personal experience with groups out there, many of the leaders in grassroots organizing are women. Women have prominent, very powerful leadership roles in this arena, and I wonder, are women perhaps more effective than men in this type of effort?
Well, I think if we look back to kind of the modern roots of organizing that were 50, 60 years ago, women were much more at home, too. And so if you were talking about neighborhood problems, they're the ones who tended to spend more time worrying about their children's school or what the park was like. And I think that tradition came in, and it was okay for them to do that. You know, maybe it wasn't okay for them to be a doctor or a lawyer in that community, but it was okay to be a community leader. And plus, they're all volunteer positions, so I think that nobody was, the men weren't challenged by those economics of the workplace in any way. I know my own work in rural East Kentucky, it was interesting because the women, and I don't mean to stereotype here, but very much paid attention more to the community, too. What's the life of the community? How do we interact with each other in a way that strengthens our social bonds to meet our needs? And I think that brought them out more, and they just saw that was important in their lives. In some ways, and again, not to stereotype, but the men were like, okay, I'll go to work, I'll provide for my family, and I don't see as much of a need to do the community work. And the other part to this, I think, is that organizers early on were willing to work with women as leaders and saw that as just important. It wasn't a barrier.
Some of the organizers' profiles in the book also lament somewhat in their roles. In this modern American society, it's difficult sometimes for organizers, for their families and their children, to understand just what they do and all the effort that they put into it. They can't say, well, I'm a truck driver or I'm a nurse, or describe themselves very easily at all. So how do organizers self-identify with what they do?
Well, I think that's one of the motivations that Kristen and I had for putting this book together, because my own parents are in their mid-80s now, and I've been at this for about 30 years. And if one of their friends says, what does your son do? They kind of just like, well, you know, he's the little guy or something like that. They just have a hard time. In fact, when I asked the question, and one of my interview questions was, if you're on a plane or a train or a bus, and you're kind of a closed audience here, there's just one person next to you, how do you describe organizing? What do you tell people you do? And it's really hard to just make it real concise. A lot of organizers say, well, we develop leaders and we create strong organizations. But then you have somebody like Octavia Ware who says, when I told my mom I wanted to be an organizer, she was so upset. She said, you went to school for so long and that's what you came out with? In her mind, she saw white people with long hair and no shoes hugging trees, or the northerner from New York or New Jersey coming down to the South telling the poor black folks what they ought to do and then leaving. So it's that mentality. I think it gives it a bad name. So there are constant struggles about what we do. There are days when I think, I wish I could just say I'm a carpenter. Make it a lot easier.
We're with author Joe Zakos here on the Audio Stash today. His book is We Make Change. Community organizers talk about what they do and why. A very important book for NORML, one of the biggest grassroots organizations ever, and we hope you all get involved with a local NORML chapter or perhaps start a local NORML chapter of your own. We have links to the book, We Make Change, and also all the local NORML chapters in America, over 140 of them, on our website today at normalaudiostash.com. I know each group or nonprofit is working on a very, very specific issue or goal, but is there some, commonality in how they find a success in organizing?
Well, I think part of it is thinking of creating a web of relationships and really trying to get a diverse group of people to work together. So, and really with some purpose to work for the common good. A lot of times we think that it's very narrow-minded, but I think in a lot of organizing it's trying to get people to think ahead. Well, what do we really want here, and how could this be? I think there's been a shift in organizing over the last 30 or 40 years from just being against things. We want to stop this. We don't like this. To really moving now to, well, what do we want to move to, or what do we want to be for? And so there's a lot more of a interconnectedness between issues so that someone can say, well, I want to make sure that our community has better health care, better education, better quality of life, better wages, and to begin to understand the interconnectedness between those things.
You touched on the idea that organizers need some balance and that they need to fight what would be commonly known as burnout. Most issues are not fully successful the first time out, especially when it comes to topics most community organizing are concerned with. Many issues are dealt multiple defeats before they make any progress. So, how do community organizers deal with that and perhaps try and turn some of those defeats into opportunities?
Yeah, I think that many of the organizers I interviewed, I would say, well, what's the disappointment that you've had? And quite a few of them would say the times that they lost, the worst loss in their organizing career, turned out to be an incredible learning opportunity for themselves, but also for others. And part of it, I think, when we look at organizing, it's not just about those issue victories. It's about personal development, leadership development. Do people have a clearer idea of what they're up against? And have they developed some more skills to try to move in that direction? So I think the difference between someone who does electoral politics and the campaign's over and they either won or they lost. But in an organizing campaign, there are times when you can identify that you've won or you lost, but you're leaving something behind in terms of a nucleus of a future community group or a group of people who have learned to work together better, or just leaders who have a better understanding of what they're up against.
And you mentioned before the sort of mischaracterization of community organizers as all being hippies or something like that. There are certainly plenty of community groups pushing causes on a grassroots level, locally and nationally, from all three sides of the political fence in America. But what are the differences between liberal and conservative groups, and how these community groups get their support and the like?
Well, I think if we look at the trends over the last 20 years or so, the organizing that's done in very conservative areas or from a conservative approach is incredibly well funded. There's a process. If you're in high school and you want to go in that direction, you're going to see apprenticeships, you're going to see internships and fellowships and job placements and kind of a nice career path that is pretty clear. I think if on more the progressive end, it's not as well coordinated and it's kind of haphazard in a lot of ways. I also think that the kind of organizing that you do as a conservative is to let's instill more fear, let's be more segregated, let's be more limited. On the progressive end, we're trying to have a bigger tent. How do you build relationships across racial lines, across class lines? How do you work for things in a more proactive way and in a positive way? And I think those are some really big differences in terms of approach.
Now, Joe, as we wrap up here today, let me ask you this. Have you seen a difference in how community organizing takes place today in the year 2007 because of technology? With MySpace, Facebook, YouTube, podcasting, is there a sense that there is a digital aspect to community organizing that almost has to be embraced by all activists today?
It's funny you ask, because at the Virginia Organizing Project, we have 25 high school and college interns this summer, and I'm meeting with them all tomorrow, and that's my question to them. How do we modify the kind of organizing approach I learned, where it's person by person, small group, get them together? How do we really fit into this new technological world that's out there? I think that you can be efficient when you can send out emails to a large group of people and try to drive them to action. But we have to remember that somebody has to get a start somewhere. Somebody has to talk to them. Somebody has to meet with them. Somebody has to do that part. And the other is, legislators still tell us time after time they would rather get a handwritten note with a coffee stain than 10,000 emails. And that how do we try to navigate through that changing world? I think that's going to change as our elected officials get a lot younger and are used to the tools of a text message on a cell phone, or email, or internet searches, or blogs. So I think we're in a very big transitional time, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to come out on the other end of that. But to organizers, it's still coming back to those relationships that you build with people and build with each other. Now, whether we can convert those to a cyberspace relationship, I'm just not sure.
Righto. Well, Joe, this has been a really, really wonderful discussion here today. I want to thank you for joining us here on the Audio Stash.
Chris, it's fun. Thank you.
Thank you again, Joe. Author Joe Zakos co-wrote We Make Change. Community organizers talk about what they do and why with his wife, Kristen. We have links to the book on our website at NORMLAudioStash.com. Make sure you get involved with your local NORML chapter, and if there isn't one near you, consider starting a new local NORML chapter. Information about all the NORML chapters and how to start a new one up on our website today at NORMLAudioStash.com. And if you do want to start a local NORML chapter, be sure to contact NORML's outreach coordinator, Erin Dame. She can be reached by telephone at area code 202-483-5500.
You're listening to NORML's Daily Audio Stash.
Oh, now it's time for some music here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash today, and boy, do we have some outstanding summer tunes for you here on the program today. Both of these come from the Independent Online Distribution Alliance. First up today, it's Keller Williams with this tune, Life. After that, it will be Kim Carnes, none other than Kim Carnes, with the acoustic version of the classic Betty Davis Eyes.
Life is like a thrift store. Oh, the joy of the score. Thrill of the hunt, the love of the game. I'm the moth and life is the flame. I always seem to want more than I can afford. It's just too short for the pain. I'm in the gutter, life is the blame. I'm in the gutter, life is the lane. 'Cause it's the same day, a different song. Sleep won't let me rock it to you all night long. It's just acoustic lunatic anarchy. I love it when you don't take me seriously. Life is like a roller coaster with a big ass line. You get burned in the sun while you're waiting for your turn to ride. Loop-de-loop and a twist and it turns all at high speed. Life is the rush of the first drop. That's the Jones that I feel. That's the Jones that I feel. 'Cause it's the same dance, different song. Sleep on and then rock it to you all night long. It's just acoustic, lunatic, or anarchy. I love it when you don't take me seriously. Life is like a dumb song that gets stuck in your head. It's just a banging around from when you wake up until you go back to bed. Just like that ice cream cone dripping down your hand. You best learn how to lick it, or you'll be up in the sweet sticky puddle right where you stand. Puddle right where you stand. 'Cause it's the same dance, it's different songs. Live around the rocket all night long. It's just acoustic, lunatical anarchy. I love it when you don't take me seriously. The same dance, different songs. Live around the rocket all night long. It's just acoustic, lunatical anarchy. I love it when you don't take me seriously.
That was Keller Williams with Life here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash. We've got links to Keller's albums up at the Independent Online Distribution Alliance on our website, normalaudiostash.com. Now it's time for that acoustic version of Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes. That was also found at the Independent Online Distribution Alliance. Great summer tunes right here on your Daily Audio Stash.
Hollow gold, her lips a sweet surprise, her hands are never cold. She got Betty Davis eyes, she'll turn her music on you. You won't have to think twice. She's pure as New York snow. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll tease you, she'll unease you, all the better just to please you. She's precocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. She got Greta Garbo, standoff size. She's got Betty Davis eyes. She'll let you take her home. It whets her appetite. She'll lay you on a throne. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll take a tumble on you, roll you like you were dice until you come up blue. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll expose you when she snows you off your feet with the crumbs she throws you. She's ferocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. And all the boys, they think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes. tease you, she'll unease you, all the better just to please you. She's ferocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. And all the boys, they think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes. She'll tease you, she'll unease you, just to please you. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll expose you, wish she knows you, if she knows you. She got Betty Davis eyes.
Oh, Kim Carnes there with the acoustic version of Betty Davis Eyes, spinning some great tunes for summer listening right here on your daily audio stash. We found those tracks up at the Independent Online Distribution Alliance. You can link up to those artists right up on our website at normalaudiostash.com. Gonna have a big show tomorrow, and next week we're gonna have Congressman Maurice Hinchey, Aaron Houston from the Marijuana Policy Project, and Congressman Ron Paul, because next week is the annual federal debate over medical marijuana with the Hinchey-Rohrabacher Amendment. More about all that on tomorrow's Audio Stash.
Hi, this is Keith Stropp, founder of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. When I founded the organization in 1970 to create a national discussion on the need to legalize marijuana for responsible adult use, no one honestly believed that 36 years later, marijuana would still be an illegal and untaxed commodity. However, since NORML began this important advocacy effort, 12 states have decriminalized the possession of marijuana, and 11 states have passed medical marijuana laws or voter initiatives, meaning that over 1/3 of the American population lives in a state or municipality that has reformed their marijuana laws. Isn't it time that Congress step in and pass national legislation to reform marijuana laws? Let's finish the job of legalizing marijuana once and for all by you and your like-minded friends joining and supporting NORML's long-standing advocacy. You can learn more about NORML's marijuana law reform efforts or become an active supporter by calling toll-free 888-67-NORML or by visiting www.normal.org.
Listening to NORML's Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Make sure you visit our website at normalaudiostash.com. That's NORMLAUDIOSTASH.com for more information about every day's show. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Thanks for listening today. See you at 4:20 tomorrow. The podcasting technology of NORML is made possible by Red Aphid Interactive Media. More information at redapphid.com.